on this computer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Focus to Evolve book club with Jason and I. Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great. And how are you?
I'm going to go ahead and pick great.
Yeah.
Of all the choices, that's a good one. Why not?
Always a good one. And today we get to discuss the book Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life by Eyal and Julie Lee. So today we're talking about that book. Jason, just off the bat, were there any just mind-blowing observations that you wanted to start out with?
Yeah, there actually were. This book was, I'm glad we chose this one. This is the anecdote to his previous book called Hooked, which is basically built the foundation of monetizing our attention. And Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they all do it to a T. They have molecularly engineered the formula to hijack humans' attention.
Oh, they do it so well.
And they've mastered it. And this guy is the one who wrote the book Hooked, and he realized the monster that he created. And so he wrote the anecdote to it, which is this book that we're going to chat about today. And I'm so thankful he did. Such great insights. Right. How about you?
I love how it teaches us about how to kind of not be so distracted by things like Facebook. And it's not just about Facebook, it's about anything that's distracting in your life. But he doesn't like paint Facebook or anything as the demon. He's like, the time you plan to waste is not wasted time. That's a very important thought to have, because if you love scrolling through Facebook and there is nothing you would rather do, then he's not saying, you're an undesirable human being. What are you doing with your time? That's not his point. It's like, if that's what you want to do and that it isn't taking away from the things that you actually want to do it. I'm not here to judge. I'm just telling you, if it's not the thing you want to do, then these are some things that you could do to perhaps hijack your brain back for yourself.
That's right. That's right. Give it back to its rightful owner. Dang it.
So you're not just mindlessly scrolling, but if you like to mindlessly scroll and you're not missing out on anything, do you, boo.
And do you well. That's the most important thing. But block that. I mean, he does mention it here. Block that.
Yep.
That time of just numb-minded. I'm just going on the algorithm of whatever platform I'm on. But at least block it. And when that dinger goes off and says, hey, trying to get back to deliberate living or deliberate making of your life, please do it. So
right. Love it. He also says something that I think we need to discuss. You can't be distracted unless you know what it's distracting you from. And with what we teach, I find that such an interesting thought, because so many people that we teach and don't have any sort of idea necessarily of what they need to do for that day constantly still feel busy, even though they don't know what they're like being distracted from. It's just such an interesting thought that he puts forth in that one sentence. You can't be distracted unless you know what it's distracting you from. There's so many avenues that my brain goes down with just that one sentence. What does that sentence say to you?
That sentence to me, I'm going to just steal from him. He basically says that when we don't have a deliberate set list to do in the morning, let's call it, like, to do things 101 is to make a list of things you have to do and then do it. But if you don't have a list, if you haven't been real good with that and you kind of just turn your email on and drink from the fire hose all day, then that's what he's talking about. Right. But humans are optimized to be pain-reducing creatures.
Right.
And sometimes it's about distraction. Sometimes it's a purposeful distraction, a subset, because we feel pain by having to do something. It could be a mundane job, it could be a mundane task, or a mundane life, if you haven't yet really started to architect your life yet, which is a choice. But yeah, it can be a pain escape habit,
right?
Allowing your attention to be pulled onto every little shiny ping and ding. It's actually your subconscious mechanism of escaping discomfort.
Right.
And man, oh man, is it stealing all of your dreams from you if you're allowing that. So interesting concept. I love how deep he gets with some of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. I don't even know necessarily what to say about that, but it's so interesting that people will, on one hand, say they're so scattered and they're so busy and they feel so out of control. And if you went a layer deeper and we're like, okay, what are you busy from? Like, what is it taking you away from? And they have no set system for saying, well, I don't know. I just feel harried and busy. And it's almost like we've got this collective hive mind, especially in this country where we're just always distracted and we're always busy and we're always blah. It's like, is that serving us? Like, is that helpful to us? And P.S., if you need a system for figuring out what you do need to do in your life, Jason and I like to teach people about things like that. So give us a call and email us.
Yeah. That's true. That's what we do. Distraction is a company culture was one line that he said.
Right.
And it is also an internal motto that a lot of people just start saying, I'm just busy. And we've outlawed the word busy here at Focus to Evolve, because that means you've just forgotten about choice. You always have choice.
Right.
So we don't give any hall passes on that. But if your company is a company of where we're distracted is a culture, like all doors open, always in the open platform, like the books have been written about that. The folly is now known. There are some times when collaboration and ongoing flow of humans is hugely important. But then there's a gigantic chunk of time where no distractions absolutely required. So it's not an all or nothing thing. Right. We need to be good at being aware of when we're distracted and why we're distracted. Is it a pain management thing? Is it just because I haven't defined what I'm going to do today, and therefore I just let the world have at me, and then I feel busy and I don't know what I'm being distracted from?
Right.
So it's really interesting stuff.
Right. I just love this book. He said time management is pain management, which is something you have very much touched on here. And he had a quote that says, "My life is one long escape from myself." And I love that, because I don't necessarily feel that way in my own person, but I know that there have been past iterations of me, myself, and I in this lifetime that I have definitely felt that way. So I definitely can see it in other people too. And there are moments in my life still where it just feels like I'm still escaping from myself sometimes, but
and sometimes it's happening with nothing deliberate pulling or pushing on it. It's kind of like he mentions this kind of concept. He calls it urge surfing, where when you get that, hey, I'm going to jump over to the next window, or I'm going to just walk over and get coffee. He says, hey, take a breath. Like, you are above your activities. You're above your habits. You're the selector of these things. So just get on up above it and say, yeah, we'll go do that. Kind of like you're treating yourself like a cute little puppy. Like, hey, puppy wants to go out. Okay, I'll get to that. Like, the higher you should be the commander in chief here. And so it's okay to just ride that urge. Just sit with it for a minute, just so you don't knee-jerk jump to something, or the next window, or the next email that came in, or the next YouTube dopamine drip that you need. This way, and he says do it for about 90 seconds for up to 10 minutes, where you just delay your gratification. That's a big meta level pull of value in life. Every time you have an urge to do something, just sit with it. Aubrey Marcus talks about in Japan, he learned 6 deep breaths is the key to unlocking all urges. So yeah, get that urge. Oh, I want to go look at that. I want to go get a new cup of coffee. Say, oh, okay, yeah, go lay down for a minute. Good boy, go lay down. And in about 90 seconds to 10 minutes, we're going to do that. But I'm going to break this habit of doing whatever my habits and urges want.
Right.
Huge skill to learn.
Right. Yeah, living with a 6-year-old, you can see where our I have a 6-year-old, and you can see that his life is just basically following one urge to the next. And it is challenging to teach him about, now we're in a space in life where we need to learn how to do things other than what your urges are. And yes, keep your urges and your natural passions and curiosity, but I
Sure.
also need to teach you how to like regiment things into your life that are good for you too. So let's take that bath that you don't necessarily want to take. So I can definitely see how we all just started out as these little urge demons, and we at some point have to figure out how to balance those urge demons, which is also the passionate part of ourselves, which we also have to love, with the routines and the things, and trying to figure out how to balance those things. And they are also a big proponent, as we are in our trainings, of time boxed scheduling. We call it being the architect of your ideal day or of your time. And I love that we kind of are on the same wavelength there of using calendars to not just find the time magically to do things, but to make the time to do things. And I love his architecture, which is also our architecture, of the first things that get into that calendar are the things that you need for yourself. It's the exercise, it's the time to get ready in the morning, it's the unfocused time. And then the second level is your important relationships. Don't make your family residual beneficiaries of your time. So I love that he doesn't get to the professional part of our calendar and being the architect of our day until well down in the list, which is actually the same way that we train people with being the architect of our time. Did you have anything else to add with that?
I would bring in Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's a neurobiologist, and he's done a lot of work in these kind of things. You know, he's a big fan of Cal Newport's deep work, and he puts a little neuroscience on top of it, actually some heavy neuroscience. And he talks about how humans, we should all be taught that we have particular cycles. So we know the sun cycle. We sleep and we wake, and we sleep and we wake. Everyone's real familiar with that one. We're force fed that one. Then there's the moon cycle, and that affects things. That actually affects real biological things, literally. And then there's another cycle that most humans are not aware of. We operate on these 90-minute-ish, every human's a little different, ebb and flows, let's call it. So as you're doing your calendaring or your architectural calendaring, and you're getting your blocks in to do, deep focus work, to do tasks very quietly, and then you kind of open up to the world and say, let's go play. I don't know, let's just flow. That's a whole other thing. But these things, they come in 90-minute urges, he says. And that was new to me. I mean, I know that as I block my calendar, the ideal flow state for me personally was literally 90 minutes, an hour and a half. And that was before I heard that. And guess what? My unfocused time, my play time, when I plop those in the calendar, 90 minutes. It was unbelievable that was. And then when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's a real human cycle. That took a lot of me being very quiet to discover that, because I tried the 30-minute flow. I've tried the 4-hour, 5-hour, half a day thing. And it was always kind of like clunky, but that 90-minute thing. So as you're getting into blocking calendar time for yourself and for getting back to people or whatever you're blocking in protected times, try 90 minutes first. Apparently it's a human cycle that all of us deal with.
Yeah. I feel like I might go on to the longer end of that, because I definitely feel like I have always been someone who could like sit with things a little longer than my peers. So I feel like I might be a 2 to 3 hour cycle person. But yeah, noticing what your cycles are and when you start to get really fidgety about things, it's a very good curiosity laden experiment that reaps benefits if you just sit with it for a couple of weeks and try to figure out the pattern for your own life.
But again, know thyself. You might be a 30-minute person. You might be a 5-hour person. I know that like Google, when they hire programmers, they find people who can do deep work for days. That's no exaggeration. They put horse blinders on, they go into a dark room and just have like 6 Red Bulls and 17 coffees, and they just code. They lose consciousness in it. So, find yourself.
How does your body hang out with you while you're doing the same thing for days? I don't even understand how that works.
They're just in their element, you know, they were made for that stuff. So they
Yeah.
just lose. It's a spiritual experience for them. Actually, I'll bet. Like they are just in total presence.
Yeah, I love that. Going on to the next thing that I had that stuck out to me. He says, well, they say 85% of app users don't adjust their notifications. And boy, is that a high number. And boy, are there a lot of people that I encounter in my interactions professionally and personally that have no idea that you can just like stop the dings at some point. And so I know it's a heavy part of our training to turn off notifications. And I talk to people about, okay, in order to turn off your notifications on your phone, you go here. And the only 3 things that are allowed to make noise on my phone are phone calls, text messages, and alarms that I set for myself. Like Facebook doesn't get to ding at me. I get to it when I want to. Instagram, eBay, Amazon, none of it can ding at me. But man, do most of them ding at you as a default if you don't actively turn them off, because they want you to come and look at their products and to look at their application and to get your attention. So have you noticed the same? Does 85% of app users seem like the accurate number in your own life?
I think it does, just from folks around me, especially, you know, I have a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old, and it's just like, how many dings per second can a thing do? It's unbelievable. So it's an interesting, I'm not going to go to here with this conversation, but this next generation, I'm wondering if it's a disaster or are their brains evolving because of this? I mean, I don't know. Are they going to be able to handle all this distraction in a different way? I'll bet you, because human brains are pretty adaptable machines, that they will interface distraction way different than how we are, and especially differently from how our parents did and their parents. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but yes, the dings, not changing those settings. My wife just did one today. She said she has some watch program on her phone where she gets 1 hour combined in all social media. So it keeps track of all apps that she threw in this bucket. And as soon as it adds up to 1 hour, boom, they all black out.
Yeah. What's the name of the app?
I should know that. We'll have to put it in the show notes or something. Because I just don't.
There are many. If you Google that kind of app, that there will be many that you can get. What other points did you want to bring up with this book? Because I know you had a few.
Yeah, coming up and out of, going back up to about 100,000 foot. I'm going to read this one. It's from Seneca. He mentions how Seneca, not the Indian Seneca, the Stoic. He mentions how humans are so protective with all their little trinkets, and yet with the one thing they should be unmercifully protecting, they don't. And that is the minutes of their day.
Yeah.
And, we grew up in a society where we do want to interact. But it goes back, I feel like I'm just kicking a dead horse here, but just take another look at how well you're managing your minutes ahead. Today might be lost, but tomorrow, go ahead and be that architect and protect some time for your recovery. Protect some time to do deep work with your company. Protect some time to do things with your children and with your wife or your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. But definitely don't let them just flow away.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, it's expensive to do that.
Minutes are the finite resource of our lives, that's for sure.
Another study, kind of getting down into a little bit more of a detail layer, was I really enjoyed reading about how that one hospital made nurses wear, I think, yellow jackets so that doctors would know and other nurses would know, hey, oh, she's got her yellow jacket on, or he has his yellow jacket on. It became hospital policy that when you see a nurse with a jacket on, you are not allowed to approach them, quite literally. And this had to do with the amount of errors that were going on when they were administering different tests and blood work, and it was costing the hospital a fortune because of the errors. When they did that, when the nurses got that protected time from the company culture, because yellow jackets meant don't interrupt them. They're the most important person in that hospital right now. 50% error reduction.
Right.
Instantly.
Right.
So just to cut and paste that into your life. Like, what if you architected a mechanism where you don't get distracted? Now, if you're in a work that's highly toxic in terms of everyone's switched on and hitting you at all times, try to work with that. If you're in a role where that's the case, like if you're a day trader, I know we've trained some traders on the floor. And yeah, when the market's on, that's what you do. That's what you're being paid to do. But then your strategic time later has to be very well protected so you can do strategic work.
Right.
So no matter what role or what company you're in, there are definitely levers you can pull to increase this. But just imagine if you could increase your accuracy, your speed, your your general value output by 50%. When we do our trainings, we tout that you do a lot more than just 50% boost, because we put a lot of modalities on top of each other. We kind of pleasure stack, so to speak, on the productivity front. But we've studied 10, 20 years to really knock that one down. But just right away, start something. Start one protected hour per day, and then see what happens in that 1 hour. But be really, really strong with it. Don't let anyone in your borders, unless it's an emergency. That's different. But.
Right. Well, we are getting to that time. Are there any final thoughts you wanted to share on Indistractable?
Just work on those urges. I mean, that's where it is. Work on the urges. Always delay response. Exercise that muscle.
Yep.
Of delaying response to urges and distractions. And it is a muscle, and it does get very strong over time.
Yeah.
That would be my final statement. How about you?
Yeah. Get rid of any dings that you don't find helpful. If you do find them helpful, don't let people tell you that it's wasted time, because you get to decide what you do with all of your time. So both be indistractable, but also let yourself go where your passions are. Like, it's always a both and in this life. We're never going to tell you Facebook is the devil, and we're never going to tell you that you need to keep your nose to the grindstone all day. It's this both and balance that we are big proponents of. And thank you for the Indistractable book, Julini and Eyal, because it helped me, and I know it helped Jason, and hopefully there will be a few people that listen to this and it will help them as well. But we didn't get into everything. Please go in please go in, check out the book, buy it, because it's a gem.
It is absolutely fully endorsed without any reservation. Please do buy this book.
Yeah, I had I don't think I necessarily believe that. I didn't have any of that through this book. So that's in my world, that's a pretty good book. But thank you again, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll get you another one in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Bye.